Hey everybody, Six String Supplies. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how to wire a Stratocaster using a three-way blade switch. Okay, so I've been meaning to do this video for a very long time. The reason being, this is a very cool setup. I've had it in a couple of guitars in the past, and it's very, very popular. So the main difference, obviously, is that we're using a three-way switch, typically found in a Telecaster, as opposed to the five-way switch, which is what the Stratocaster is generally known for these days. The reason being, actually, so when the Fender Stratocaster was originally released in the 50s, every guitar came with a three-way blade switch, just like this. CRL USA are the manufacturer. But a lot of players discovered that by removing this spring on the back, it's a spring action switch, they discovered that if you remove that spring, you could actually get the blade lever stuck in those in-between positions that we know today on the five-way switch, positions 2 and 4. So I don't know the exact dates. I'm sure someone will correct me. Please do, because I don't actually know. I believe it was in the mid to late 70s. It might even have stretched into the early 80s, at which point they decided to make the five-way switch as a standard feature of the Strat. We'll be using that one. Now this setup, the reason why I like it so much is that it has a master volume, master tone, and what would be the second tone control, we're actually using as a blender control to blend in the middle pickup at as and when we want it. I've got a 0.022 capacitor, switchcraft jack. I won't be showing you how to wire the jack or install it because we've done it so many times in previous videos, but I will put a link to that one below. I'm using cloth wire. You literally need not even a foot and a half of white and half a foot of black to complete this job. I'm using this because it's what we've got in stock, but you can use any wire you want. I'm using tinned copper here just to reinforce the ground between the pots. I'll be showing you that in a second. It's 0.9mm. The solder is the same as previous video. It's Rapid Online lead-free silver solder, 3.9% silver. I've got some brass shavings here just to clean my soldering tip. And the soldering station is the same. It's the Hakko FX Triple HD, which I've had for a good 3.5 years now. And love it. Although I am in the process of online window shopping for a new one. With no further ado, I'm just going to put these components into the control plate. As usual, I'll take you through how to wire it step by step. There'll be some diagrams on your screen as usual in the bottom corner if you do get lost at any point, but I will make it as clear as I possibly can. And then we'll actually plug it in and play and give a quick demo on how everything sounds. So I'm just going to put these in the control plate and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to start off with a bit of grounding. I'm going to be using some tin copper to reinforce the ground connection between the three pots. Now, a lot of people do ask why I do this. The reason is quite simple. It's to reinforce the ground, and I'll show you why now. This pickguard has been used once. This was brand new and featured in last week's video. The reason why I put a reinforced ground connection between the pots is because these teeth washers sit in the control plate like so. They stop the pot moving around, they dig in. Like I say, this has been used once and you can see that the teeth have already eaten through the aluminium foil there on the pickguard. So bear in mind this has been used once. What that means is these teeth will eat through eventually the foil and then they won't be grounded, and it won't take long at all. If you're worried about a ground loop, that's not how ground loops work. I'll cover that in a separate video a bit further along, but I just wanted to point out the reason why I do it. It's to reinforce the ground. Now with the switch, it's not an issue because there are no teeth on the switch and it just sits there nicely. You can of course ground the switch anyway if you decide to reinforce it. Okay, so I'm gonna put the pots into the pickguard and we'll crack on. Okay, so you'll see that I've already put a ground wire down here. Everything else is ready to start work on. So we're going to start off with a bit of grounding. So on the volume control, just like on any wiring setup, this lug here needs to be grounded to the pot casings, the easiest way to do it. And exactly the same for the middle terminal of the master tone control. So we're going to bend that onto the pot casing as well. So I'm sure you've seen me do this enough times. You can either use a jumper wire to do it, or I like to just fill the eyelet with solder. And then just bend it back onto the pot casing, and we'll solder it in place there. Just turn that around so you guys can get a better view. As you can see on the screen, it's just bridged the gap. So that lug is now well and truly grounded, and we're just going to do exactly the same on the tone control for the middle lug. I'm trying to get as close as I possibly can so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing, but if you do get lost at any point, there will always be, every single connection we make, there will always be a diagram to show you on the screen flashing up, just so you can keep up. Okay, that's the grounding done. Next we're going to start wiring up the switch. Okay, so onto the switch. Anyone who knows anything about blade switches, so these two solder terminals at opposite ends of each other on each side of the switch are the common lugs. So what that means is that they are always on, regardless of what position the switch is in. So we need to connect those two together just to make sure that both sides of the switch are connected. So I'm just going to use a bit of cloth wire as a jumper wire. And I'm going to bend that round to the other side. And like I say, we're connecting that to this solder terminal here. But just before we solder that into place, we also need to connect that same lug to the volume control. Like so. And the end of this wire is going to go to the input of the volume control, which is this one here, the one nearest the switch. So I'm just going to cut that to length. Excuse me. Got a bad habit of hitting the camera. So I'm just going to push that back. And that's going to be soldered into that terminal there. Again, however, just before we solder that into place, we need another length of wire, because we're also connecting the input of the volume all the way down to our blend control here, this solder lug here. So we just need to make sure that everything's done. Excuse the very poor technique there. And like I say, this wire is coming down to this terminal here on the what will be our blend control, where we hook up the middle pickup. So again, I'm just going to cut that to length. I'm going to push the cloth back. And solder into place. Like I say. Okay, so there's a couple more connections on the switch that we need to do, then we can move on to the capacitor, and we'll start to hook up the pickups. So the final two connections we need to make on the switch, we need to connect these two terminals together, and again on the opposite side, these two, the top right here. So the two on the bottom left we're going to connect together, and the two on the top right. And our pickups, so the neck pickup is going to go down here, and the bridge pickup is going top right. Up to you how you do this. You can use cloth wire or whatever. I'm personally going to be using a couple of staples. It's just tinned wire that I've just bent into the shape of a staple, just because they slot in nice and easily, like that. And I'm just going to solder that into place. Like so. Now the final connection we need to make on the harness itself is the capacitor, and the capacitor is going through the volume input, and the other end is going to the lug, completely directly opposite, excuse me, on the tone control. So I'd recommend using a smaller capacitor if you can. I'm talking size wise, not value, because these pots are quite close together, the lugs, so it's a bit of a ball ache. Getting an orange drop would be perfect because it would fit nicely between the two. Otherwise you can just try and bend it everywhere like I have. Okay, so I'm just going to wire up the jack, and then we'll put the pickups into the pick guard and we'll start hooking everything else up. Okay, so I put the pickups into the pick guard and we're just going to hook them up. I've already done it off camera just to save a bit of time. All your pickup grounds get grounded to ground basically, so typically you put them on top of the volume pot, so that's all done. So all I need to show you is how to connect the live wires coming from the pickups. I've put some rubber tubing on them just for my own sanity on which wire is what. So the yellow is the neck, blue for bridge, and the one with no colour is the middle pickup, and that's the one that's going to go to the blend control. So we're going to start off with that one actually. So your middle pickup goes to the middle terminal here of the blend pot. So I'll just go ahead and put that one in. Like so. Just bend that out of the way. Okay, so the neck pickup is going to this terminal here on the switch. It's the most bottom left, the one where we put the jumper wire into earlier. So I'm just going to push that cloth back. And the bridge pickup is going to the top right on the opposite side. So the same again. Push the cloth back. Okay, now we're just going to put everything back into the guitar itself. We'll hook up the jack socket and the main ground for the bridge, and then we'll plug it in and see how it all sounds. So just to show you how to install everything in the guitar, again, we've done it plenty of times in previous videos. So all we're doing, this yellow wire here, if you're using a jack, it can be any color, but typically it would be white, is the signal wire, and that's going to the output lug of the volume control, which is the middle terminal. And I've got the ground from the main bridge and the ground from the jack soldered to the back of the pot casing here. So that's all we've done. We're just going to turn it over, screw it back down, put a new set of strings on, and we'll see how it all sounds. So I'm just going to have a little noodle just to give you a bit of a sound bite as to how it all works. So remember, the second tone control at the bottom is our blend control, and that's for the middle pickup. So we can blend in the middle pickup into the other combinations. The only downside to this wiring setup, and I suspect it's not that major for most people, you cannot have the middle pickup on its own. Otherwise, you can have neck and bridge to give you that bit of telly spank, or you can have all three pickups on at the same time. And the main advantage of having a three-way switch for a lot of live players, there's no faffing about. I mean, it's a very, very minor advantage, to be honest, but a lot of people just like it on a three-way, so it's nice and simple. Okay, with no further ado, I'm going to have a quick play around and just blend in the bridge pickup as and when, and you should have some titles on your screen just to let you know what combination is being played at what time. There you go. Any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks very, very much for watching, guys. And we'll see you real soon and in the next video.